essence of God giving me that gift, I am going to put the falcon in a position in my pantheon of heroes and sheroes to have that gift. They took the letter M in Meduneter, which is an owl. And they said, you know, the owl is not the most intelligent bird. But there are two things the owl does very well. It sees in the dark. In other words, the personification or the symbolism or the metaphor of being able to see intelligence in darkness in order to see the true path when the false path is before you. There's something else an owl can do that the Kemites admired very much. It can see 360 degrees. In other words, not only can it see in the dark, but it can see all angles of things. So the Kemites said, wow, I would like that personality. Not only can this bird see in the dark, but it can see all angles of things, so therefore it sees things holistically and it can see the whole universe. So they did not worship the owl, they worshiped the God-given gift that their creator, Amun-Ra, had given the owl. Let's look at the dog. What can a dog do? The dog can smell, it can discriminate, it can tell the difference in meat in a moment of it being uneatable to the moment that it can be eaten. It said, wow, what a gift that, to be able to discriminate. That's why Impu is the discriminator at the judgment scene. Because it is Impu or Anubis who lets everyone know if his heart really is right. For instance, my brother, you have a young, beautiful queen, young princess. If anyone were to do or look like they were going to do harm, you would lash out at anybody. Anybody. That might cause someone's death. Now, take that example and compare it to someone walking down the street and just taking somebody's life. Well, Impu would say, well, that person just took somebody, because remember, it is against the natural law to take a life. But in discrimination, there are times when you have no choice but to do certain things that under other circumstances would be wrong, but in this case it is right. So in the case of walking down the street and taking a human's life is wrong. But to protect your young one, that's the only thing you could do. So Impu would be at the judgment scene and said, yes, brother did take a life, but it was a justified. It was his job to be the discriminator. Now, take the person who's walking down the street and is just looking to take someone off anyway, sees something going on and decides to just use that as an excuse to take someone's life. Impu would be there to say, yes, he did protect that person, but in his heart, brother really wanted to do him in anyway, and he was just using that. So as discrimination, that fine discrimination between what's right and what's wrong, is the dog's ability to smell, to discriminate. Now the cat. The cat has something real special. I just admire. It comes out of the concept of having 9 lives. A cat can fall from a second floor story, land on his feet, and scurry away. A cat has agility. A cat gets power by its agility, by the way. Most of the great cats, like for instance, if you take a huge tiger, a tiger uses its force, and when you look at martial arts, you can see that this is in the philosophy. A tiger can use its force to just knock something down. But a panther is a cat I admire greatly. In fact, it has almost become my whole reason to be. I admire panthers, besides the fact that they're black. But panthers move so quickly through space, they gather the strength of a lion through their agility. So that when a panther is approaching you, it's approaching you so quickly, it approaches you and smacks you with the same power that the lion had by just standing still. So the cat has agility to be able to use its strength through space, to be able to create the kind of power that a lion has automatically, just through its sheer strength and size. That's the agility. That's what the Kemites admired in cats, was their agility. And we're going to talk about the rabbit and the hare as we go through this, and we'll also talk about that. And then you have, of course, flashback and foreshadowing, when they talk about prophecy and also when they talk about what happened in the past. There's a relationship between prophecy, because you cannot prophesize the future if you don't have a well-grounded knowledge of the past. In fact, the greatest prophets have been those who understood the past the most. That's why I would never deal with a prophet that wasn't a historian. Because you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. So how you going to lead me someplace where you don't even know where you've come from? So a prophet has to have a sense. And please don't ever follow someone who don't know where they're going. And that's a lot of the problem that we're facing right now today in our society. We're following people who don't know where they're going. let's look at the Shabaka stone or the Memphite text, because the Shabaka stone, rewritten version of the Memphite text, thousands of years old, it said that in the very beginning of all times in the universe, everything was in the waters of Nun. Rising up out of the waters of Nun at some point in time, came Ptah. Ptah becomes the conversion. Ptah is the conversion of potential energy or energy at rest into energy in motion. This is what life is. When we're in classrooms and our children are sitting in a room and they raise their hand to ask a question, when their hand was down, that was potential energy. When they raised their hand, that was a conversion of potential energy into energy in motion, or what is called kinetic energy. We teach this to our children. This is information and science that we teach. This was deeply written in the Memphite text, or the Shabaka stone. Out of the waters of Nun, through the conversion of Ptah, came Atum, which really is saying that when you balance the spirit with the matter, you then get creative utterance, or the word becoming flesh. Out of this was the creation of this right here was called the primate of the essences. The first philosophy of the Shabaka stone. The second philosophy then said that Atum named 4 pairs. Nun, Nunet. Now let me tell you, please, if I may, about Meduneter. We do not believe there were vowels in Meduneter. We do not believe that there was an actual sound. We don't think that it was a spoken language. We think it was a pictographic language. Just like if you go to Kennedy Airport and there are over 150 different people in Kennedy Airport, and we all look at a door that has a man there. No matter what language you may speak, men know they can go into that room. It didn't say men, it didn't say hombre, it didn't say l'homme, it didn't say it in all the different languages. The picture itself told you what it was. The same is true for Meduneter. It wasn't necessarily a spoken language. Research is telling us that later on, the Ethiopian Coptic Church and the Egyptian Coptic Church, the language spoken there became the vocalization of Meduneter. But Meduneter itself, we don't know if it was a spoken language, and there really were no vowels. But because of the nature of the readings that you're going to do, you're going to come upon these words. So I want to let you know that these are the words that you're going to come upon, but at the same time, the European can't deal without vowels because they've got to move their mouth a certain way. African folks speak a certain way. I'm telling you, when we get back to our original language, for instance, Ptah. Ptah wasn't necessarily said Ptah. At least I don't feel that it was. I think Ptah, when you said Ptah, you said because it was spittle. And so the conversion of Ptah is and that's how they pronounced it. So it wasn't like it was a letter sound. It was an emanation of something. And don't we do that? If we're going to spit on somebody, don't we, like that, right? Well, that when you sound that out, it sounds like same thing with shoo. Shoo is air. They didn't say shoo. They said shoo. So that when Herodotus went to Ethiopia and said that when you heard these Ethiopians speak, it sounded like bats. It was because Africans speak in tonalities. They don't necessarily speak in this language. See, this is when you speak literally. This is why Malcolm told us that English is the language of liars. This is why the talking drum, it's phenomenal to think that Africans could create a drum that could talk. But when you're on tonality, a saxophone, that's why we're so good at jazz, because we're talking with jazz. When a saxophonist gets up there and plays, you can literally almost feel what he's saying. When Billie Holiday would sing the blues, you would feel blue. When she sang those words, it was totally different from when her European counterparts sang the blues. So when they sing the blues, they sound like they're happy. Well, you can't sing the blues and be happy. You've got to sound sad. So you've got to bring a whole personality to what you're doing. And that's what makes us such a great people, because we breathe fresh air. It's like a balloon. Western civilization is like a flat balloon with no air in it. When we get this civilization, we blow air in it and we give it a whole nother dimension. Whether it be in sports or entertainment, Spike Lee and John Singleton are doing things in filmmaking that are changing the whole face of filmmaking. The way in which they're using the camera, The way in which he did Malcolm X was so powerful. If you get deep into that film, you'll see that Spike Lee did something with filmmaking that was very powerful, very natural. John Singleton does the same thing. We're doing it everywhere. And I'm telling you that when we get into our classrooms and we develop this curriculum, we're going to do in the classroom what Michael Jordan has done on the basketball court and what Tiger Woods is going to do on the golf course. We're going to we're going to get so deep in this that ETS won't be able to test our children because they're not going to be able to get deep enough to understand even what our children know. And that's what they're afraid of. They are afraid of a black planet because they didn't understand us before. If we get in control again, we're going to leave them in the dust because we've learned our lesson. They will never sit before us again. At least I'm not teaching them anything. Coquette, and aminette. Very important, understand male and female. African perception, you cannot have male and not have female. That is just a part of life. In some African nations, there's no such thing as the words women's equality because by the nature of being a woman, you're already equal. So why be redundant? There's no concept of women in any way being anything less than equal in the society. After having watched women do all that they do, Africans said, well, of course they're equal. This Western civilization has turned all that around. One of the cornerstones to the problems of Western civilization is that the European male does not know his mother and doesn't know how to treat her. Because anytime you can curse the womb from whence you come, brothers, as big as and as bad as brothers may be, they all love their mother. We may have a lot of problems, and we may even have situations where we might not love our mother. I don't speak in the absolute. But for the most part, we have a fear of our mother. We don't play with that concept. We may play dozens and things like that. But we really don't have the feeling towards our mothers. As big as we may be, we just come to our mothers, they seem so much taller than we are. That's the way we feel towards our mothers, but they don't feel that way towards their mothers. They grow up to curse their mother. They grow up to say they're better than their mother, because you cannot say that you as a male are superior to a woman if you're not saying that about your own mother. Because however you feel about other women is how you feel towards your mother. And so part of the society, we have no problems dealing with our women. I've often said that black men and black women don't have a problem with each other. We have a problem with this society that creates a problem amongst us. Because when we're in Africa, and the evidence of this, and I ask you, you don't need to take it from me, go to Africa and just look at any community that has not been infected by Western civilization. And you will see it, it's a natural process. That there is a duality in the community, that everyone has their position, everyone has their job, no one's more important than the other, and without each other you cannot survive. It's the law of polarity, it's a very natural law. And one of our problems, I'm sorry, please?
It's the law of balance.
It's the law of balance. It's something that keeps you walking upright. African folk want to keep walking upright. And you see what happens when you stop. It's imbalanced. And so we've got to begin to look at these things. So that's why I bring out the point that for everything male, there is something female, because one brings the other into being, one balances the other, and then out of balance comes to fruition of individualization, which is the calling into being of everything and all by our tongue. This is a philosophical underpinning. This we teach our children. We may not say it like this in the younger grades, but we give them lessons that they can understand this. So nil is water, net is to counter heavens or space. So one of the first things that was created in the universe was the difference between matter and space. Then came infinity and finity. That which could not end, that which could end. Then came the dark and the light. Those things that were in the dark, those things were in the light, in all of its metaphoric levels. And then Amen and Amenet. Amen is the hidden, Amenet is the revealed. What you can see and what you cannot see. African folk were well aware that there are things that you cannot see. Many African folk will never tell you they've seen the unseen, because that's impossible. See, people in Western civilization will tell you they've seen the unseen. Well, you haven't seen the unseen. Chances are, if you see something that you thought was unseen, chances are it's just you didn't see it before. Now you see it. It's not that it was unseen, it's just that you didn't see it. It is impossible to see the unseen by the nature of it being unseen. Because if you see it, then it's seen. African folk had no problem making this balance in life. So this became the second philosophy of the Shabaka stone, which is the essences of pre-existing order and arrangement. Now, the important thing to understand about this story of Nun, Ptah, and Atum is that it replicates itself on a lot of different levels. For instance, Nun, let's look at the cosmic level. We're saying that these represent something on the cosmic level, represent something on the earthly level, and then we look at the human level or organic life. Okay. Nun. Nun, on the cosmic level, represents the universal ocean. It represents the hydrogen plasma that is what the universe is made up of. Water, this ubiquitous water that is everywhere and always. Nothing that we know of today. It's not like our drinking water. It's not like the water that we sweat from our body. It's a unique water. It is like the womb water. It is like the amniotic fluid, not the amniotic fluid. It's the amniotic fluid. That's where they got the word amniotic from. It was from Amun. Amun, which means, Amen, which means the hidden waters. The nurturing waters was the waters of the woman's womb, and the womb was like the cosmos. And while the baby was in there, it's interesting how the baby can feed off of the water. It breathes the water and it lets the water out. But once it gets out into the oxygen world, then it starts to breathe. But while it's in the womb, it is consumed in water. And that's exactly what we are consumed in. In the cosmic level, Nun is the universal ocean. On the earthly level, it represents the earth's great waters. Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, all of the waters of the worlds, the floods, whatever it may be. On the human level, it's us. We are made up of mostly water. We are made up of basically hydrogen. As a people, that's what we are made up of. So Nun, on an organic level, is organic life, or us. Ptah, Ptah being the hill. On the cosmic level, Ptah represents the cosmic spirit, the energy, the conversion of potential energy to kinetic energy. It represents the living plasma. That's what Western science calls this living force in the universe, this conversion of energy that is unseen but also seen. They call it plasma. They don't know what that means, by the way. They have not defined it, they have no concept of it, and I'm so lucky I know they don't know. Because in our African text, they knew. But there were ways that they explained it in the metaphor that made it acceptable. See, now we say on one level to believe it and have faith, and that's one problem that a lot of African folk have. The Moors had a lot of problem with a lot of their Christian brothers and sisters in Spain and Europe and Spain and Portugal, because they said that you have faith in God. You have a belief in God. Moors had a problem with that because Moors were sure God existed. And there's a difference between knowing God exists and having faith and belief that he or she exists. Because to have a belief means that there's a possibility that they don't exist. But to know they exist is a surety. And also, so Ptah on the earthly level represents the earth's great lands, Pangaea, the continents, the islands. That's Ptah on the earthly level. And on the human level, it is us in our ordered and arranged state, or the conversion of our energy as we go through life. We perform the same function on Earth that the sun performs in the in our solar system. The job of the sun all day long is to convert hydrogen into helium. They take 4 hydrogen atoms and they fuse the nuclei, and they create light and heat energy. They create 1 helium atom and they create part free radical. That's what comes. That's the job. We do the same thing. In our action, in our activity, we are converting energy. We are creating energy. That is why when you get close to someone who is really inspired, you can almost feel an aura coming off. You know, amongst Indian people, it's called the prana aura, P-R-A-N-A. A prana aura is an aura that can emanate from your body 2 to 3 feet outside of yourself. It can be positive, it can be negative. It's all according to what you're vibrating out of. And it is that vibration that you live by that then is what you carry on in the next life. So you have someone who deals with a dim aura, who acts in a negative way, well, you're going to have problems when you come back around because you created your own problem by being that kind of negative person. But when you live your life and you vibrate off of other people, when you do for other people, when you do for children, when you do for the elderly, when you do for those who can't do for themselves, when you do for the least of those, it creates an aura within you that actually creates a living existence for you on earth. And there are people, well guided and well aware, that can actually tell you what color your aura is. Because your aura becomes different colors as you vibrate. And please, when you look at waves, when you understand electromagnetism, this is no hocus pocus, this is no spookism. Because in science you do the same thing. When you have a radio that's receptive and has all the electricity, you get good reception. You can hear clearly. Well, the same thing is true in life. When you eat the proper foods, when you associate with the right people, you create the kind of life that is in tune with everything around you. And that was the purpose of life on earth, was to get onto that level. And to get on it and know how to control it so you never got off. That was the key in life. Was not just to find it, but to know how to control it so that you would always just be able to do it. So that when you have a headache, when you're in trouble, when you have a problem, what do you say? I think I just want to listen to some jazz, I want to listen to some music. I think I'm going to call up my friend. That friend that can always talk you out of the problems. Well, that's dealing with your aura. So that by the time you hang up that phone, your aura is bright again. Some people go into the sun. They get well melanated. There's a number of ways you can do it. As African people, we knew how to control our lives and our environment. But we're so busy now, sometimes when we need it the most, we got to go to a meeting. So whereas we would have just chilled out and said, look, man, I'm going out into the sun for a while. We can't do that now because we got to be somewhere by 2 o'clock. So it's a whole nother social system. And the person you worked for wanted you to go, knowing that you were going to come back with a good aura. They say, yeah, go ahead, man, spend an hour. You want an hour? Hour and a half, go ahead, hour and a half, 2 hours, yeah, go ahead. Because they knew when you came back, you'd be ready to do what you had to do. So that's what built pyramids. That's what built temples. That's what built the kind of societies that the Moors had. That's what they're trying to get us away from. Okay, when you look at Atum on the cosmic level is the word made cosmic flesh. It is the universe ordering and arranging itself, making the atoms join nuclei through thermonuclear reactions, becoming molecules, and molecules becoming more complex molecules, and then down the road becoming what it becomes. On the earthly level, Atum represents organic life, the plants, everything living on the earth. That's the atomic philosophy as it is referred to in this pattern. That's why I said this can be related to everything that exists on earth if you look at the pattern. And if you look at the pattern on earth, you then can determine the cosmic. So this is how you can foretell and prophesize. Because you know the pattern on one level, you just follow the pattern on all the other higher levels, and you just change the way in which you look at the particular level that you're on. So it's cosmic, it's earthly, and then you have the human, or the organic life. On the human level, Atum is intellectual illumination. It is consciousness. It is a well-skilled melanated pineal gland working at optimum fashion, secreting the proper melatonin, secreting the proper serotonin, secreting the proper soul trio in line with the pituitary gland. You know, the glands, they say, are like stars in the universe. Your glands in your body, if you were the universe, your glands are like stars, satellitic, that send and secrete physical messages like stars will send different light systems to each other. Because that's how the stars shine, you know. The stars don't shine by themselves. The stars shine by each other. And if you want evidence of that, look at King Tut's tomb. Go to the second sarcophagus in the right-hand corner, and it'll show you a pictograph where there are 6 pharaohs with a uraeus in the front giving out light into the pineal gland of the first pharaoh. And then there's a star giving the same kind of energy. And then the next figure behind has the star, and then the next figure behind. And then pretty soon you have stars sending energy to stars, sending energy to stars, which shows that there's a satellitic effect of the energy that we can produce as human beings. Our ancestors knew how to do this. The Dogon knew how to draw on this power. We have lost this. Western civilization and this Ma'afa, this terroristic disaster that they call slavery, has dulled our perceptions. Those of us who had no strong auras, some of our auras are getting dim. That's why when we sang that gospel, keep your light trimmed and burning, you remember that gospel song? Well, that was an African tradition to remind you that, keep your spirit trimmed, Don't let this heavy baggage get in the way that it stops you from knowing that you'll be free. Keep it trimmed and burning. In other words, don't let that light go out. Don't lose that hope. And that's what we tell our children today. Don't let these conditions make you think things are worse. We are better off today than we've ever been before. He's day that's in trouble. Shu and Tefnut is air and moisture. Air and moisture give birth to Nut and Geb. Sorry about that. Nut and Geb is sky and earth. Now let's look at this scientifically. When the earth was first forming, there was a carboniferous zone that hovered over the earth that did not allow oxygen to be able to bring forward the cycle of life. Oxygen was denied possibilities because of the heaviness of the carbon dioxide that was hovering over the earth. This is science. It's called the Carboniferous period. It is a period where plant life was just all around. It was abundant. It was growing. But it wasn't able to produce the oxygen that was needed because of the hovering of the carbon dioxide. Okay? What occurred was that the air came up and separated and allowed the sunlight to come down to create organic life. Now, follow the story here. Nut and Geb were in a lover's embrace. This is the way the Kemetic story goes. Nut and Geb were in a lover's embrace, and Shu came down and separated Nut from Geb, and Nut gave birth to the sun. Now, look at that. First of all, the earth is male. It's not female in this case. Why? Because the earth did not give birth to life. Sunlight did. And that's a phenomenal story to understand at that time. Let me say it again. Earth, although we are living on earth, life did not come from the earth. Life came from the sun. You see? So it was Nut that gave birth to the sun. In other words, she swallowed the sun at night and gave birth to it in the day, which was the cycle of day and night. But they were astute enough to know back then that life didn't come from the earth, which then deals with Dogon. Because the Dogon clearly understood the role of outer space with human life. You see, we are not earthbound people. We are a cosmic people. The Europeans are earthbound. They are mutations of us. See, they were born on Earth. We were born in the cosmos. We did not come from Earth. Life was generated from a much stronger source that planted the seed for life on Earth. And you can go back in our solar system's history and you'll see that life may have been on Mars at one time and no life on Earth. There might have been life on Mercury, no life on Earth. But this is our time to have life. So when you're seeing this thing about El Nino is merely the messenger of the voice of God for what's coming on this planet pretty soon. Our Kemetic ancestors were well aware of cosmic catastrophes. They were well aware of why the Earth was on a 23 and a third degree slant. They possibly could have been alive at times when meteors came in contact with the Earth. So there's no reason why we should be surprised at of El Nino. In fact, if you go back in the Native American codices, they warned that this was going to come at this time. They said that there would be floods during the 7th generation of the 7th generation, and this is the 7th generation. So many of their prophecies is actually coming true today. That even the Native Americans said, you know, if Europeans had listened to Native Americans instead of their real estate people, they would never have moved along the Mississippi River. Because Native Americans were well aware that the Mississippi overflowed every 500 to 600 years. They told them don't hang out there. You can go there now, but plan on leaving pretty soon. This is why Native Americans moved around the United States. Not because they were migratory people, but because they were patterns in disasters. The same thing with Africans. They knew where to be at what time, because why? The sky told them where to be. But we are living during a time now that we're going by other people's recommendations and they don't know how to read the sky. And Nut and Geb being in a lover's embrace, Nut gives birth to the sun, and then down on earth comes the life systems, Asar, Aset, Seton, Nebetet. Asar being life on earth, organic life. Asar, Aset. Asar is the male, it's the higher passions, it's also chlorophyllian life. You can see Asar green, you you can see a star black. When he's green, he represents chlorophyll in life. Because, you know, there are those people who believe that many, 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 many years ago, organic life was green. So that would fit in with the Dogon story of how these beings and green. I mean organic life starting, yes, organic life period, because, oh yes, organic life is people. In fact, organic people...
Okay, so you're saying that some people believe that organic life touching on things like green?
Yes, yes. That in fact, people in many, many eons ago, in terms of their complexion, were green, because of the chlorophyllian lifestyle. This is what some people believe. We have research to do here. When you look at the principles of life, you can see how green could be a possible complexion of early life, moving into its brownish stages and the other pieces. Because I'm telling you, life's history has not been told on this planet yet. There are a lot of things that have yet to be unfolded. And they're afraid that when this information comes out, it's so phenomenal. So they're throwing this X-Files at you, this ID4 at you, hoping that they're going to get you ready for what the real deal is. And then Asar and Aset give birth to Heru. In terms of organic life started in the waters.
Yes, sir.
That's where it started. It started with a protozoan, a one cell, some people call them amoeba, just one cell right in the water. And that one cell began to catch on, and over thousands upon millions of years, this then grew into something else.
Want to make you more healthy?
I'm sorry?
Want to make you more healthy?
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's why chlorophyll is so good. That's why a lot of people, you know, you have spirulina and things like that come directly from the algae. The blue-green algae, and there's a blue-green algae. Yeah, there's a whole concept of that, you know. Coming deep out of Ethiopia, and now they have a place, I believe, somewhere out west. I have the tape. I ordered some of the materials. But see, this is conducive to your system because that's what you're made of. It's natural. It's part of the living system of the human being. But you see, when they're trying to sell you beef, and when they're trying to sell you pork, they don't have time to tell you that the less you put in your body, the better for you. So as we begin to develop this has to become a holistic plan. This has to be a way in which we look at everything together. Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Because it got a little active there. I saw that we were I want to make sure everything's all right. Please feel free to ask questions when they come about, because I don't know about a question and answer period. Okay. Now let's talk about the Dogon. How much time do I have?
It's all the time you need, sir.
Oh, wow.
I can answer that.
All right. The Dogon. If we look at this map, the Dogon live, as you go up into this area here where Timbuktu is, you go into Mali. The Dogon live right up in here. Now it is so careful, we have to be so careful in saying exactly where they live. Because the Dogon are such a large people that there are a number of places they could be. But this is Mali. This is Timbuktu up in here. And this is the area. Their central area is approximately 200 miles south of Timbuktu. But they're all in this area here, the Dogon people. The Dogon people live in a mountainous area of the Republic of Mali, northwest Africa, 200 miles south of the ancient African educational center called Timbuktu. Through exacting long-term observation, the Dogon people determined that seasonal cycles, vegetarian growth cycles, and even animal migration and mating cycles correlated with the cyclical changing position of the cosmos. An important star used in their calendar calculations was and still is the star named Sirius A, located in the constellation Canis Major, or the Dog Star. The Dogon called this star Sigui-Tolo, S-I-G-U-I, Tolo, T-O-L-O, Tolo meaning star. They called it Sigui-Tolo because of its brightness in the night sky. But of significant interest to the Dogon was Sigui-Tolo's tiny companion star they named Otolo. O is a grain that the Dogon grow. And the grain is the smallest grain that they have. And because this star is so tiny, they compared this tiny star in the sky to this tiny grain. This star was so important to the development of Earth And the green was so important to the development of their social society. Bo. Botolo is the tiniest star in the sky. Botolo, or Sirius B, revolves around Sigitolo, or Sirius A. However, the special Sigi ceremony centers around Botolo and its revolution around Sigitolo. The two stars together, while opposite in their natures, represent balance and twinness to the Dogon. And this twinness can be compared to the pairs. The Dogon have four pairs also that come up out of the waters of Mo. The two stars together, while opposite in their natures, represent balance and twinness to the Dogon. Twinness being the law of polarity. For example, they would compare perfection and imperfection, singular to the plural, disorder from order, male and female, human and divine. Another level of Dogon cosmology reveals Botolo, or Sirius B, to be the natural center of the cosmic universe. Botolo was also called Kizi-Uzi, or the littlest seed. Kizi-Uzi, this littlest seed, is believed to be the center of what all known galaxies, clusters, and superclusters revolve around. Kizi-Uzi is the central axis, the seed womb of the cosmic universe. Dogon say that Kizi-Uzi, Botolo, or Sirius B, though invisible, is the most important star in the sky. It was known as the egg womb of the cosmic world, the beginning and ending of all and everything, seen and unseen. Kizi-Uzi is believed to be the heaviest star in the sky. It is made up of a material that the Dogon call Sagala, S-A-G-A-L-A. Sagala is a little brighter than what we know today as iron. Kizi-Uzi is so heavy that all the human beings combined on Earth could not lift this star. One thimbleful, you all know how big a thimble is, one thimbleful would weigh 40 tons, or 80,000 pounds. One thimbleful of what this star is made of. It's so dense, it's a black star. Another star that orbits Sigitolo, or Sirius A, is called Emaya, or the sun of women, S-U-N, of women. Emaya is larger than Kizi-Uzi and also much brighter. There is a smaller satellite star that is called Nyantolo, the star of women. Kizi-Uzi, the seed for cosmic life, had an internal vibration, or an implosion, an expression of thought, an energetic conversion, a constitution and reconstitution of atom. It had a nuclear fusion. These nuclear fusions caused Kizi-Uzi to burst out of its encasement, creating, by reaching forever outwards to the outermost confines of itself, the infinitely finite boundaries of the universe. This is what the Dogon are saying. And this is nowhere near the depth of the real story. See, they're not giving the deep story. They're not giving what the young people call the 411 here. They're just giving them what's on the outside there, that superficial information. Because you got to be part of this to really get in. But you can see that if they gave this away, and they were ostracized by the other three groups, you can imagine what was really underneath this information. I mean, you can see, and this is why I say, expand your minds. This is what I want us to do. I want us to think differently. I don't know if what I say is as accurate as our children will prove to be. I'm sure that there will be corrections on what I say and what I do. But I just want you to stop and think about this, that the fact that there are millions of Earths that can fit in our sun. Imagine a sun that is out there, and our sun is rather mediocre compared to other suns. Imagine a sun 555 billion times the size of our sun that has over 250,000 planets with living beings on it that go all around it. Now you see, we got one sun, and to our knowledge, we're the only living essence circling the sun. I'm asking you, go out of our galaxy. Go into another part of our cosmic reality and imagine a sun so much huger than ours that has over 250,000 planets like our Earth. Imagine them getting to each other's planets like we get from borough to borough. And when you're thinking that, you can think of the immensity of our universe and our galaxy. Thank you, my brother. And this is something very important because I want us to think differently. We're thinking very shallow now. because we're thinking through someone else's shallow imagination. As an African people, we knew how to expand our mind concept to areas that we dared not go. Our sun is not that bright, by the way. Can you imagine what a sun system would be like, where it was bright and the kind of life that could live there? So this is what we're asking. Just think about this. This is what the Dogon are asking us. The supreme manifestations of the all-powerful, all-knowing, all-seeing, and forever-present Source, who was the creator and sustainer of the cosmic thought, was believed to be the supreme architectural designer of the cosmos, who ordered and arranged all